This is Chuck Marshall with Metal Wani, and I am talking to Michael Romeo. Michael, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks.
So your first solo album, War of the Worlds Part 1, is coming out on July 21st, or 27th, sorry. Why did you decide the time was right now to record a solo album as opposed to a new Symphony X album?
Well, the band was on hiatus for a little bit. Russ was putting a lot of time. He said he wanted to put some time into, his other project. And, some of the guys were just doing other things. So it was like, okay, man, got a little time here. And, it's something I thought about doing for a while.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, yeah, man, now's the time. Just do it.
Awesome. So I've always felt that your music has a very cinematic feel, and this is especially true on the new album. Songs like Introduction, The War Machine, and even Fuckin Robots give you that sense of like a high-speed action sci-fi flick. Do you have a visual in your mind that you then shape the music around thematically?
Yeah, usually something like that. Even before I start writing, or really early on, I'll try to find at least a title or at least some kind of, like a theme or, some kind of direction.
Yeah.
That the music, it is, it does have that, how can I say, it does have a vibe to it that, like you said, cinematic, I love all that stuff.
Right.
So, I think it helps just writing, kind of shaping, what the visual could be, if there was one. But, and it just helps writing, too, have a direction. And with this one, it was, I wanted to do something that was maybe a little sci-fi and that epic space thing and, that kind of music with some of that orchestral stuff in there.
Right.
So I remember I was just, like, going through books or just, looking around for some kind of ideas, and I came across War of the Worlds, and I was like, okay, well, that's sci-fi, and that's kind of spacey, and,
yeah,
let me see if I can work with that.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was, pretty easy sound.
So, so tell me, like, what inspired Fuckin Robots?
Oh, man. That wasn't even supposed to be the title. That was like a working title. It was a goof, It was just like a goof. Somebody was saying something, that that kind of electronic dubstep. It sounded like Transformers having sex.
Yeah.
That was the title, and then we just said, fuck it, leave it. Let's leave it.
Yeah, it does. But, it does sound like a Transformers thing for sure.
But that came along just from years back. I remember when my kids were a little younger, and they were listening to some of that stuff. And, I'd hear it, and I'd be like, what the hell? How are you guys listening to?
Right.
Dubstep, and at first, first it's like, I don't know, man. It's like, no guitars, or,
Yeah.
But then it's like, it had like the big drop, and it gets all heavy, and I'm just like, oh, that's, and some of that stuff is pretty slick, man. some of these guys that do that, they obviously have some skill.
Yeah.
I could totally respect that. So when I started doing this thing, I'm like, hey, man, it might be kind of cool to have something like that, but get some guitars in there and still keep it in line with the rest of the record where, yeah, maybe there is this orchestral element kind of happening in it. And it's like, yeah, fuck it. Let's throw a vocal on a chorus on it. Let's just kind of mix it up and see what happens. So, yeah, it was just fun, man, just trying different things.
Cool. The song Constellations is yet another very orchestral song. Can you take us through the writing process for something like that? Do you start off with like a melodic theme and then build upon that, or is it maybe like a lyrical phrase that then triggers and inspires that song?
It's always a little different on every song. Like, when I first start to write, I'll just try to get a couple of themes together. And, like, eventually, they could become, like, on this one, like, sometimes they'll become a vocal melody, or sometimes it'll just be, like, a guitar line, or it'll be, like, a melody within a little orchestral interlude or something like that. So I always try to make stuff, throughout, coming back to different themes and different ideas. But, yeah, every song is different, A song like that, like Constellations, it's like, it was, like, heavy on the orchestra, and that big film cinematic kind of thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
But like a song like Black or Gin, it's like, yeah, usually the guitar you got a riff, you got a couple riffs, or maybe an idea for a chorus. So yeah, every song's different, but overall, I knew I wanted this whole thing to be like kind of one continuous piece, and yeah, a lot of the themes and stuff were early on. So as you're writing a new song, it's like, oh, maybe I'll revisit that theme and kind of stick that in here.
Yeah.
Or reverse it or do something. Just kind of playing with the ideas and letting them develop throughout the record.
Awesome. So, I know that you're a fan of composers like John Williams, who scored just about every awesome movie that's ever been made. Have you ever considered scoring for music?
No.
Or for a film, sorry.
Yeah, I just finished up working on a film last week, and a couple months back I did a horror flick. So yeah, a little bit here and there. Obviously I love that stuff.
Yeah.
You get to do something totally different,
Yeah.
So yeah, man, as time goes on, if more work comes my way, that's cool, and, I'm always, doing the guitar stuff too, so.
Right.
As long as it's music, man, as long as I'm doing music, then I'm cool.
Yeah. So maybe they'll be hitting you up for the next, Star Wars installment.
Yeah, I doubt it, bro.
You gotta dream big, man.
Yeah, no, man, I think big, but I know, William is king, man.
Yeah.
You can't touch that guy. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
So for your solo album, you enlisted Rick Castellano for vocals, John DeServio on bass, and John Mascaluso on drums. Macaluso, yeah. His so all their performances are stellar on the album. How did you end up working with those guys?
It was all guys I knew, because I knew when I did this, it's like, yeah, man, I just like to get, get guys I'm friendly with, or guys that I've known for years, and so that was going in the thing. And I think the first guy called was Macaluso. All these guys are East Coast guys too, so it's just dudes I knew.
Uh-huh.
And and he was always wanting to do something, and so he was the first guy called, and he was excited, he was in, and yeah, he did a fantastic job.
Yeah. The drums are amazing.
And JD, I went to high school with JD.
Oh, really? Wow, cool.
So like we, knew each other since we were young, man.
Yeah.
And he I started Symphony X, and we got that going, and he was playing with Zach and Black Label for a long time, but we always, we'd run into each other, and it's like, oh man, we should do something. So we decided to do this. I'm like, yeah, man, let me give Servio a call to see what he's got going on. And so that worked out. And then Rick, I had met him years back, and every once in a while, like me and some of my old buddies, we'll just get together and jam for fun, just kind of chill out, a couple drinks, just chilling. And one of the guys who knew Rick, he's like, oh, my buddy Rick come down, and he'll sing on some stuff, and we'll do some Sabbath and Priest, and
awesome.
So, and then I remember I was like, Rick was young, but I'm like, he's pretty good, and we got along well, kept in touch.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, decided to do the solo record. I'm like, let me call Rick.
Great. So, do you have any plans to take War of the Worlds Part 1 on tour?
Not sure right now.
Uh-huh.
Initially, no, because initially it was like, okay, I'm just going to do a solo record. And, probably the real factor early on was not thinking about doing it live. So it's like, oh yeah, man, there could be, pile on the guitar tracks and layers of orchestra and synths, and
yeah,
it didn't matter, because it's like, don't have to really worry about reproducing it.
Right.
So it was more about the sonic quality. And now it's like, well, maybe we could, and it's like, okay, well then now what do we do? It's like maybe try to find a small orchestra or something.
Right.
Or
yeah.
It would involve a little bit more than 4 East Coast knuckleheads on stage trying to make it sound like that. It would be a little bit more, but it's not out of the question.
Crazy. So I know that I've read that you've got basically almost completed War of the Worlds Part 2, kind of holding off on that to give people a chance to get into this new album. I'm sure fans are wondering, are you going to start working on a new Symphony X album?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I mean, now, like, you know, I just finished up this thing, you know, so kind of just, you know, concentrating on this, and, you know, just kind of waiting to hear where Russ is at, too. I mean, I spoke to him, like, I don't know, 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And, I mean, you know, he's been through a lot with the accident, and
yeah,
I think it puts everything in perspective a little different, you know, so I'm not really sure what he wants to do.
Okay.
So we're just kind of playing that by ear. But, I mean, at some point, we'll figure out what we're going to do and just move ahead, you know, just waiting to see, you know.
Right.
And like I said, he's definitely been through a lot, you know, the tragedy of the accident, and there's got to be a lot. So, I mean, you know, I give him the time, you know, just giving him a little time to, you know, just sort things out. And, you know, it's totally understandable. Anybody been through that kind of situation, it's like, yeah, man, that's heavy, man. That's a lot. So, hey, you know, take your time, you know, collect your thoughts, and, you know, just, you know, let us know what we're doing.
Right. Yeah, and you've got the new music out, so it's not a big rush. So.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, I consider you to be one of the greatest guitarists in metal music.
Wow.
I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, man. I'm actually very serious. But given your technical and creative prowess, how do you challenge yourself as an artist to grow?
I mean, I think I'm just wired that way too, man. You know, it's like, you know, like if you're gonna do something, just do it the best you can. You know, I mean, I listen to so many different things too, and there's always something new, or, you know, so you're always hearing new things, getting inspired by new things, and even old things, you know, going back to like classical music and Stravinsky and like picking apart a score, and it's like, oh, well, that's cool. I never thought to do that. Maybe I'll try to steal that idea.
Right.
You know, so yeah, there's so many different types of music and other stuff to get inspired from that, you know, kind of keep it fresh. And but even more so than that, just, you know, like I said, man, if I'm going to do something, it's like, you know, not do it half-assed.
Right.
Go all in, man.
Right. So do you have any kind of like guilty pleasures as far as music goes that people would be kind of like, wow, Michael Romeo listens to that?
Probably nothing crazy. I mean, maybe this dubstep thing might be. But I don't sit around and listen to dubstep. You know, I mean, it was like, you know, like I heard it, I hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard it all the time with the kids at some point. But even that, it's like, okay, man, I can respect some of the level of skill involved in that, and it's a totally different thing. And then, you know, turns into this robot song, and it's like, okay, cool, man. It's, you know, but I mean, the normal stuff, man, yeah, man. You know, I'm still a metal guy. I'll still put on some Priest or, you know, Russ even, or, you know, or the new Star Wars score. I mean, you know, every day it's different, but, you know, I like what I like, but if I do hear something that's a little different outside the box, it's like, yeah, I'll give it a fair shake.
That's cool. That's good. So, Michael, I just got one more question for you, and that is, what is your favorite breakfast food?
My favorite what?
Breakfast food.
My favorite breakfast food?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't know, man. I'm not really a breakfast. I'm more of a dinner guy. I'm more of a meat potatoes guy.
All right. Well, lay it on me. What do you like to eat then?
Oh, man. Dinner, like, you know, meat and potatoes, surf and turf, lobster, and steak. You know, steaks.
Awesome.
But I mean, if it was breakfast, and, you know, occasionally I'll have breakfast, and yeah, whatever, man. Bacon, eggs, it's the normal bullshit, you know.
Yeah. Well, hey, Michael, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Yeah, man, good stuff, dude.